Hey, welcome back to another edition of Chocobo Chasers. As always, I am
Uh,
G. I'm
Oh, my
joined
ears.
by the Chocobros, Eric and Dash. How are you guys doing today?
What up, bro?
A bit chilly, you know?
Hey, we're
Little
chilling.
snowy here in Louisiana,
Yeah,
baby.
the world is ending. Eric's getting snow.
Good.
It's like 5 degrees at my house, which is why I'm all bundled up right now. And Dash is in Florida, where just the hellscape continues to go on.
If
Fucking
it's not a
Pensacola,
hellscape in
Pensacola got
the...
snow. It's
I don't
starting to
live
rain.
there. So we got, the coldest we got was 38, I'd say.
I mean, that's pretty cold
That's
for
cold
you,
for
though.
Central Florida.
And
Yeah.
I neglected to turn on the heater, so it probably hit, 59 in the house before I realized I should probably turn on the heater.
That's about how cold my house gets sometimes.
Oh,
So,
dude, I know your wife was just fucking fuming.
oh. Well, we have a few things to talk about. Obviously, Xbox Developer Direct happened today, and boy, do
sick.
we have a
You're
bit to
sick.
talk about. Yeah, just
Perfect reason to
absolute
delay
fire.
this episode.
Yeah,
I know. It ended up working on our favor.
yeah, seriously. But let's go ahead. Let's kick off the episode with a little bit of what are you playing. There's a game that we have been waiting to talk about. We can talk about to an extent today. I'll actually kick us off. So played a bit more Dragon Quest, having a great time. It's my comfort game. Like, it's just so nice to be able to just turn your brain off, hop into this world, do some turn-based battle. It's beautiful. The music's fantastic. It's really just so nice to be able to do that. In addition, I have played a lot of Eternal Strands. A lot. And for those of you who are playing the demo, you can only play up to a very specific point. I'm well past that point right now. I'll post a really, really fun clip that I made last night on launch day to give you a better look at some of the powers and some of the combos that you can do. But man, Yellow Brick, they knocked this one out of the park. Obviously, we had a very unique experience being able to go ahead and be partnered with them throughout this development cycle and getting to see the game from almost like a year ago to now. It's been quite a different experience, but honestly, this is a absolute fun game. I'm not finished, and I think I've got a little bit before I'm still there. So I'm hoping to finish by next week, and then games launch, we can talk about it, give our full impressions. But the story, I'm really enjoying. I do think that you get a good sense for some of the powers, especially to that demo point. But you guys are in for so much more. Again, can't really talk about too much, but really just having a blast with it. Played a lot more Deadlock, CFB, and yeah, it's been kind of a calmer gaming week for me. I feel like I'm going out of town this weekend, so won't be doing too much. But yeah, I'll pass it over to Eric.
I have not gamed a ton this week, but what I have gamed on was we played some more Hell Let Loose. We had 8 people on the other. Actually, it was 9. We had 2
Wow.
full squad. We had a tank squadron and we had a full infantry squad, and it was just pure chaos. 9 people in a Discord shouting at each other while you're trying to hear other captains in the game speak. Because the way it goes, there's infantry squads, there's tank squads, there's recon squads, there's a commander, and there's a chat just for captains and the commander. So those people can be going off, screaming at each other. There's squad chat, and then there's our Discord chat. We were all in the same squad, so we weren't using squad. And then you have local chat. So all the people who are in proximity to you, you can just hear them screaming. Look, if I go down, I'm at the top of my lungs. I'm at the top of my lungs screaming, "Mess!" And eventually you'll get rezzed. It's great. People don't like it, but that's their problem. You can play so many good maps. There's Utah Beach, there's Foy, St. Mary Glay, Omaha Beach. It's the full experience. You remember playing Medal of Honor?
Oh yeah.
When you landed at Omaha Beach and you just felt like you were watching Saving Private Ryan. And that's
Wasn't Steven Spielberg involved with the production of Medal of Honor Allied Assault 2?
I'd be lying to you if I knew, to be honest with you. Wouldn't shock me.
What's funny is when creating Saving Private Ryan, Steven Spielberg wanted to test out a variety of different scenarios, but didn't want to film them. And they ended up making Medal of Honor because of that. So literally, he basically created Medal of Honor.
That's sick. That's fucking awesome. Great game, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so you go from there. We got a few dubs. We lost a couple. I'll tell you, like, that's a game. Like, if you're doing well, that game's fun. If you're not doing well, that's not a fun game at all. Like, if sometimes you can get spawn camped by enemy artillery. There's times where like, and it's not like quick respawns. Like sometimes it takes like you deploy after you die.
Yeah.
And then so like sometimes if you don't hit the deployment time just right, you have to wait 30 seconds sometimes. So like if you're waiting almost a minute to get back in and you immediately get artied, it's fucking miserable. Or you could have a tank watching your spawn or whatnot. It can be miserable. It's fucking sucks sometimes. But is what it is. Played some Valorant with the boys, got some dubs. Played some Madden, turn off your brain game. I'm in the AFC Championship with the Jags. Trevor Lawrence, the God, Messiah. We're going for the title. Fuck Patrick Mahomes. Fuck the Chiefs.
Lisa Nalgaib.
Fuck the refs who help the Chiefs constantly.
Josh Allen, our Lord and Savior this week.
Our TikTok comments are going to be filled with Chiefs fans now.
Yeah.
Why couldn't Breeze get this fucking love from the goddamn refs? This is bullshit. That's really all I kind of played this week, though. It was a great time.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time. Dash, what about you, man?
A lot more TCG Shop Simulator as usual. Wasn't really going to have much to say about it since it's the same old, but I think it was like Tuesday, they surprised me with a little patch update, adding some more stuff to sell and more shop upgrades for the size. So that gives me something to actually work towards again, their partnership is with an actual licensed brand, Ultra Pro, who makes actual like train card gear, like card sleeves, top loaders, binders, play mats. So like these are officially licensed products that you could go on their website and buy that are in the game now, which I feel like it's significant in the route that we could potentially, hopefully see maybe Wizards of the Coast or some other major company eventually start doing stuff with this, because otherwise I'm just going to have to mod it in. But other than that, did some more League of Legends. I'm starting to get more of the hang of it, doing some regular matches and actually winning some. So like all I do is play Jinx. Okay. And she has a very weak early game, so I kind of just have to hope that I can survive that early game phase when I start to ramp up late game where I can start to actually do my work. But got really good games in last night, so I'm actually starting to enjoy the game again and not get flamed. So it's not me that's the problem anymore, I can hopefully say. But for new games that are on my list, we got Pilgrim. So Pilgrim is like Lethal Company. So it's a very Lethal Company-esque game, kind of like Skybound Extraction. But instead of, being set in like a sci-fi universe, this is more medieval fantasy. That
looks terrifying. I'm looking at it on Steam.
It's very early access still. It's a very janky game. So like there's still a lot of technical issues that I encountered when playing it, but like the goal is you're in a wagon. You start off at the city and you gotta get the wagon to the next city, which I've never actually done yet. But along the way, you get stops where it's like, oh, it's a point of interest. It'll be like a dungeon or a merchant. So basically the goal is to go into the dungeon. There's always going to be like a power crystal, and you want the power crystal because that's what fuels your wagon. Otherwise, you have to get out and push your wagon if you don't have any fuel. Okay. And you do not want to be outside your wagon depending on the situation, because at least in the first area, there's a giant that comes during different phases of the nights. So you might, and he can actually get you inside the wagon too. I've learned this the hard way because I was just standing near the wagon door as like the giant's just like looking at us, and then next thing you know, the wagon doors just break and he pulls me out. So
big dead.
But a lot of different interesting enemy types. You got like the standard mimic, you got the weeping angel type enemy. You got, we call him Limbo, I guess, but he just, once you find the crystal in the dungeon, he basically makes a beeline for you and steals it from you. So then if you don't get out in time, you have to go find him and get it back. But really fun, can be very scary and intense at times, but I feel like it needs a lot more work. It's still, like I said, early access. It's not as what I would feel polished as Lethal Company, but I do love the aesthetic. I do love the style that they're going for with this. So hopefully he continues to support this. It's been a while since they've actually done like a big patch for it to add significant content. So I mean, that's kind of like what keeps your early access games alive at this point, is you have to communicate with the community and continue to feed them, right? So, but it's one that I'm going to keep an eye on. So, happy Thanksgiving, Pilgrim. And finally, I got into Metaphor, what some might consider the game of the year last year. And I can understand it. I mean, I haven't gotten too far into it, but it's an Atlas game through and through. It may not have the Persona name on it, but it feels exactly like the Persona games I've played from them. But it has all that style to it. The aesthetics it's just in a fantasy environment instead of real world / occult like folklore kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So really cool. I love the archetype system, and you can assign any archetype to any character if you want to.
Yep.
And those are basically your personas. They work exactly the same way. They have the same exact weakness and strength system that Persona had. It's just, I guess it might help with the development time, right? If you just reuse the assets from Persona. Not a bad thing, because Persona's gameplay loop is fantastic, and they managed to make it even better with this, I feel like. Outstanding soundtrack as always. I wouldn't expect anything less from Atlas. So I'm really looking forward to getting further into the game. Just have to, set aside the time to do it and really focus in on it. But
hell yeah,
maybe once I finally get all the achievements I've been grinding for in the Pokemon or the TCG shop simulator, I'll finally dedicate time to something else.
Hell yeah. Well, I feel like we had a somewhat condensed week, even though we were a little bit delayed on the episode this week. So let's talk Xbox Developer Direct, because it happened today. We were all working, and otherwise we would have streamed it, because that would have been a lot of fun. But we did get some pretty awesome stuff today. So we knew 3 of the 4 titles, when actually what ended up being 5 titles were being shown. And the best part about all of this is we got a release date or time frame for every single game, and every single one comes out this year, with the majority of them coming out in the first half of this year, including one that got shadow dropped today. So we got South of Midnight, which is launching in April. We got Expedition 33, which is also launching in April. We got Doom: The Dark Ages, which is launching in May. We got Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which is a remaster of Ninja Gaiden 2, and it was shadow dropped, available today, and also out on PlayStation and PC. And then also Ninja Gaiden 4, which was one of the titles we potentially suggested that this game could be. They mentioned Japanese franchise.
She called it.
Team Ninja. It just made a lot of sense. It was just more of a question because they did just barely announce a brand new Ninja Gaiden in the 2D, platformer style, which is what the series hails from. That being said, if you ask anybody under the age of 30 Ninja Gaiden Xbox, they're going to think of Ryu Hayabusa in the Xbox action games. So South of Midnight was apparently not super well received based on some of the stuff we were seeing. I thought the animation looks fantastic.
I like that stop motion animation.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, if you like Nightmare Before Christmas or anything like that, like,
yeah,
that's what that is. And it's just, it just looks different than anything I've seen.
Yeah. And games, I mean, just exactly like film. Like, it's such a easy way to make something that is unique, and something that stands out. And this absolutely appears to be that. I mean, if it's going to be a good game or not, that remains to be seen. But it's going to be a day one Game Pass game, so it's not like you're going to have to pay $60 and potentially be disappointed. you can literally just play it day one. And if you don't like it, guess what? You still have Game Pass. You can play the million other things that are
Just
available.
move on and don't, have to harass people who do enjoy the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Gaming Twitter out there.
Because they're obviously a very reasonable bunch.
Yeah. The usual suspects, we know why they don't like this game.
Yeah. Expedition 33 looks insane.
Fantastic, dude. It looks so fucking good. The cast is nuts. Cast is nuts.
Yeah. Ben Starr.
Deborah Wild.
Yeah.
Friend of the pod, Deborah Wild.
Deborah Wild. You've got... It's just like in kind of insane... It feels so Final Fantasy-esque.
Andy Serkis, too, is in the cast.
Yeah. Like, it feels like a... I mentioned this in our Discord. It feels like kind of what Final Fantasy 15, what a lot of people kind of hoped it would be. Like, retaining that turn-based style while adding a more modern flair to it. And this game absolutely feels like that. I'm so stoked for this. Honestly, I everything that I've seen, I will probably play it day one. I will resub my Game Pass sub just to play this and South of Midnight now as well. But yeah, just looks absolutely incredible. We also got Doom, the Dark Ages, which looks so insane. I really liked Doom 2016, and I didn't like Eternal as much.
I prefer 16 over the Eternal, but
but
they're both amazing games in my opinion.
16 was great. I didn't play Eternal yet.
Eternal just feels a little too fast paced for me. So for everybody who loves Doom 2016, Eternal is basically just like turn that up to 12. Yeah. And it's like that the whole time, basically. They're like the sword is so awesome. And it's like obviously it wasn't going to show up in the Dark Ages because this is a prequel, but love the melee fixtures that they've added in this game. The flail, the mace, everything just seems very cool. All the weapons they showed in game looks great. The shield looks like it's going to just be so fun to use. Yeah, on it. I mean, the things that I didn't like about Eternal, I feel like Dark Ages is kind of just rectifying those. And I will say that id Software does a really great job of implementing player feedback. I feel like they took everything from Doom 2016, upped it in Eternal, took the feedback they got from Eternal, implemented it in Dark Age, and their timeline for these games, as far as like development goes, it's been really fast. I mean, this has been 3 games in 9 years, so average 3-year turnaround. That is insanely fast for what have all been incredibly well received games as well. So no, I thought it looked insane. And then obviously they started off this show, kind of went the opposite way we typically tend to see these things with Ninja Gaiden 4. So we've got dual protagonists. Game looks awesome. And then at the same time announcing Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. So I guess first thing, what was your guys' favorite thing that you saw from the show today?
I don't think I can choose a favorite at this point. All 4 of those games are games I plan on playing. And if I'm going to make the hottest take of the year so far, I feel like all 4 of these games have potential to be in the running for Game of the Year.
I would definitely agree.
Or at least some, maybe, I could see maybe South of Midnight possibly not getting in because of how stacked this year could be. But it's going to be considered for some other category at the very least. Art
direction, there's definitely a few things that, performance just based on whatever, how it turns out. But Xbox is kind of on a roll a little bit right now. Like we've got Avowed coming. It still worries me a little bit that we have not had like any marketing for Avowed.
I think they were showing a bit of the character creator.
Yeah, but
and that was actually looking pretty impressive too.
It does. But this game launches in less than a month now. And I feel like we have not seen like, I don't know if they're just fully content. And if so, that's great. Like I hope that they're not setting, this up to not be successful. Like Obsidian is an insanely talented dev. I'm just very curious why we haven't seen it. It has one of the coolest cover arts I've ever seen. The title art for it is so sick. But yeah, so they've got Avowed, South of Midnight, Doom. Doom is going to be multi-platform though. Ninja Gaiden 4, which is also multi-platform. But I mean, we're getting some heaters from Xbox this year. I am very curious if we will see a PlayStation follow-up as kind of a retort to see if, we know that Death Stranding 2 is in kind of crunch time right now. They are looking to go ahead and launch this year. I think it's going to be later in the year. I also think Ghost of Yotei is going to launch probably in the fall. But we don't really know of anything else that's launching this year for PlayStation. Could be, this might be the year that Xbox, and just in terms of their developers, like we saw the Activision Blizzard stuff go through, and now they're finally kind of seeing the fruits of that labor. Because I mean, these games were all in development prior to that point, but they're starting to see these launch, and it's awesome. I mean, we're getting to see some really good games and some really unique games come out.
It's kind of interesting because you look at a release calendar for this year, and we still don't have that many games set out for like that we normally would. It's just kind of like I feel like developers are holding their release dates closer.
Developers are holding their cards to their chest too, because they're waiting to see when Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out. And my guess is it's going to be holiday this year if it doesn't get pushed into early 2026, which I think is a very real possibility.
Speaking of Grand Theft Auto 6, have you seen the news where some game insiders are anticipating a price increase because of it?
I saw some were hoping.
They're hoping that it gets a $100 price tag because they're like, there hasn't been a price increase for retail games in a while, and it's due.
So here's the thing.
There was like a $10 increase.
Yeah,
like 5 years
literally
ago,
with the PlayStation 5 era, it went.
And they're
up.
saying that's still not enough. Which I mean, with some sales expectations,
it would be enough
costs,
if you made good games and you could meet your fucking sales.
Yep.
So, and if gaming didn't take 6 years to go ahead and make a new game as well. So, like, gaming budgets are so inflated right now. Like, you hear about the budget of, like, Spider-Man or, some of these other games, and it's like, they're still profitable. They're making money hand over foot. But, I mean, and Spider-Man is kind of a bad one to bring up because they're pumping those games out so fast, but it just doesn't make like a lot of sense for them to go ahead and do that when they have already done that. And if GTA 6 did go ahead and increase its price, I think that would turn off your casual gamer, like, because $60 or $70 to $100 is not, I mean, in the scope of things, that's not a huge difference, but it would set kind of an insane precedent for games going forward.
It's like, I appreciate games like, the lower, not maybe AAA, but AA.
Eternal Strands launching at $39.99.
Yep. And, you get a decent amount of playtime from that. I think when I was watching Mike Laidlaw's stream, when they were showing off the demo, they said, expect about to complete the game in like 25 to 35 hours.
That's a hell of a value. Like, again, we're partnered with Eternal Strands. I want to say nice things about them, but like, I would not play a game that I'm not having fun with.
Yep.
If that makes sense. Like, I'm not playing this game just to toot the horn of Yellow Brick. Like, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, no, it's just the whole conversation surrounding the price change is something obviously we'll have to keep an eye on.
Especially Grand Theft Auto Online, which has milked microtransactions for profit. They do not need to raise their price.
Yeah. It just,
especially like if you're putting out $100 for just the base game of GTA 6, like, I don't care about online GTA or Red Dead enough.
Yeah,
like,
I don't either.
To like it, I will not be able to justify that, and I will not pay $100 to play GTA 6.
No. So everybody's waiting with bated breath for that second trailer, and assuming it'll save the release date and price and all of that kind of stuff, and we'll see if any of these
That'll
rumors are
probably
actually
hit this
true.
summer if I had to guess.
That would be my expectation as well. So, speaking of games that we're waiting to release, Assassin's Creed Shadows, which has been delayed twice so far, we have finally got a little bit more information where you're starting to see members of the media get their hands on the game for initial previews. Everything that's coming out is really positive too. They're saying that there's been this huge shift with Assassin's Creed over the last decade, starting with Origins. We saw Odyssey, we saw Valhalla, and then we saw a bit of a return to form in the most recent title. But Shadows is kind of taking the RPG elements that Assassin's Creed has really dove into and really expanding on them, but not, I guess Assassin's Creed has, I'm trying to think of like the nicest way to say this, the most empty open world of maybe any game that I've ever played. Like, it's just bloat. And Odyssey and Valhalla are humongous, but it doesn't mean anything. Like, it's not. Yeah, it's just not.
I think that was kind of
Great
like
games.
the point where I started getting turned off by the Assassin's Creed games, because I didn't like Assassin's Creed 3 as much, because you're out in like wilderness areas. What I loved about the Assassin's Creed games was being in these tightly packed cities, and you had all these people moving around. It's just you take that away, and it doesn't feel like Assassin's Creed as much anymore.
Right. It's just your generic open world RPG, which is what Assassin's Creed had kind of become. And so Shadows seems like it's learning from those lessons a little bit. And I'm excited to see if maybe we do get like a really solid evolution from them, because Ubisoft really needs to win right now, especially after Outlaws and after everything that's kind of been going on recently. So a studio we've talked a little bit about on the show a few times, Surgent Studios, Abubakar Salim, Adam Hull from House of the Dragon, also a game developer as well, made Tales of Kinzer Zhao, which Dash talked about on the show. Really, really solid game. They had been kind of putting some of their stuff on hiatus for a minute. Well, that's not the case anymore. They have a publisher now, and it is, I believe, the Pal World publisher. They just created their own publishing company, which is a really unique situation. And Surgent Studios is developing a horror game. So, Surgent, if you're listening, we want in. Let us know. But no, I think it's very cool to see them being able to continue making games, especially as we're seeing so many studios close down. And speaking of closing down, the WB Games president, Dunzo, he's out. This is probably not the worst thing in the world, because WB Games is not in a great shape right now. We know that they're developing a Wonder Woman game, and we saw the announcement for it, and then we literally did not see anything else after that point. That being said, Dash, you mentioned this in our chat, but you have to be curious if maybe WB is potentially looking at selling off their assets. Rocksteady is an incredible gaming studio. I think that Suicide Squad was a massive failure for them. They made a live service game. Live service is obviously, we're seeing PlayStation cancel all these live service games that were potentially in development.
Like
Horizon, God of War. This is a market that is like, it's so hard to maintain like supremacy in. We've seen Destiny, which is one of the biggest online games, struggle with it. WoW is really kind of one of the only ones that has just maintained that continually, unless you're like a MOBA where your gameplay loop is very tight, very focused, 20 minutes to like an hour game. So you've got Dota, League, Valorant, Deadlock, things like that. It's just, that's not a market that's easily pressable. And Sony found that out the hard way. And maybe WB Games is going to focus more on single player experiences going forward. Give us a new Arkham game. Give us a Batman Beyond game. Like, it would do so well. I'm sure I'm sure that our Rocksteady doesn't want to be known as just a Batman studio, the same way that like Insomniac doesn't want to be just a Spider-Man studio.
Which is ironic because they've made some great games before Spider-Man.
Yeah, and they have made great games while making Spider-Man. Yeah. Rift Apart is fantastic. If you haven't played Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, please do. It is incredible, and it takes full advantage of the PS5 hardware, I think, in ways that a lot of other PS5 games don't. So, in addition to those things, we've talked game closures, we talked studios getting funding. So it was announced that the director of Dragon Age has left Bioware. Bioware is in kind of a really weird spot right now where they were looked at as the premier studio, especially at EA, for a very long time. I think that has shifted now. I think Respawn is probably kind of that studio for EA these days. Just because Titanfall 1 and 2, obviously the Jedi games have been massively successful. And if rumors are to be believed, they did have a canceled Mandalorian game potentially in the works. So you do wonder if maybe they're working on something else for Lucasfilm. But BioWare, they launched Dragon Age, and to be fair, Dragon Age got some pretty solid reviews coming out. I don't think it was a letdown critically at all. Commercially, though, it did fall short of expectations. So I guess about 50% short, which is pretty drastic.
Yeah, staggering. Yeah. It makes you question the future of the franchise.
It does. And, similar to how we were talking about Ubisoft, does EA potentially look to sell off some of these franchises, which they, and Dragon Age is a hard one because it went through such a tumultuous development cycle. It was rebooted 3 different times. There were those live service elements. Again, we bring that up that were taken out of the game, but you can kind of see the bones of still.
You wonder how much of it was just set up to fail, because with a 10-year dev cycle at that point, how much really, money was wasted.
What letting go some of the people who wrote some of the big characters for over the years,
Like what game do we know that's gone through that kind of thing that has been successful? I mean, Cyberpunk went through an insanely long development cycle and launched in, maybe the most publicly horrendous way we've seen in modern gaming history.
I think it was 7 years for Cyberpunk, huh?
Yeah, it was a long time.
Because they announced Cyberpunk after Witcher 3 Hearts of Stone, maybe? They announced it. I know they announced it like while The Witcher 3 was still being worked on. So, and then like Blood and Wine was such a huge expansion that like.
Yeah, it was. I think it was 2017 or 2018. I think when it was first announced, and then it was like an insanely long time. I think it was 7 years or so from announcement to, this should never happen. I mean, that games are getting announced way too early. That's why I love
6. What the fuck?
Which is probably not coming out.
We're going to get Fallout 5
before
Elder Scrolls 6.
We're going to get Oblivion remake before we get Fallout 6.
I was surprised that wasn't announced. We're getting that.
So I think that it wasn't announced potentially because it's going to be multi-platform. And I think Xbox wants to have all of their multi-platform stuff on a single conference. Halo, Oblivion remake,
Halo's going to be wild.
It is going to be playing Halo online for PlayStation is going to be insane, but I'm totally going to do it just to be that guy, I guess. But yeah, no, like it. So the reason that I specifically wanted to bring EA up though is because we are massive, massive fans of Mass Effect on this show. One of our collective favorite gaming franchises of all time. Mass Effect trilogy is some of the best writing that I think that we've ever encountered in a game. each game did such a good job of building off of the previous title. Andromeda obviously is kind of the exception here, but Andromeda, from a gameplay perspective, is the best in the series. So
It's a nice spin-off.
yeah. But EA, I mean, BioWare probably has to have Mass Effect 5 be
A massive success.
a massive success in order to continue being a studio at this point.
I was about to say, because besides the Mass Effect Legendary Edition collection or whatever, the last games they've had were Anthem and Andromeda. So it's kind of just...
So that
Andromeda hit sales, though, didn't it?
Did it? Well, maybe it's just the critical part that didn't really pan out well for it.
So if we're looking at BioWare games, so Veilguard released in 2024. Before that, it was Legendary Edition in 2021, Anthem in 2019, Andromeda 2017. So Inquisition before that.
Yeah.
They were working on a game called Shadow Realms, which did end up being canceled. But so this new Mass Effect was announced in 2020. We are officially 5 years.
Is that how
from
long
that
it's
point.
been since that teaser?
Yes, since the original teaser. So that showed like Liara and
wow.
Yeah. So
it looks like Mass Effect Andromeda was successful. Sold a few million copies.
It didn't feel successful. That's the thing.
681 million digital, and yeah, it had a nice
681 million.
Andromeda
maybe
sales
that's the
were strong.
profit.
Wow, digital net sales. So
Yeah,
it was
I'm
a
assuming
record,
that's
it was a record for
dollar
their first
amount.
quarter.
Yeah, because it's
not
like
copies. They sold
I'm
5
not-
million copies. It said.
I think it was like for
5 million is really solid.
Yeah.
Veilguard was projecting 3 million, so that was their sales target. So 5 million is really solid.
Yeah, they said that they reached about 15 or a million and a half.
It's hard when
players.
we see games like Call of Duty and you hear like, you know, the 20 million or whatever that number is going to be drastically lower this year, obviously, because people are playing on Game Pass.
Yep.
But it's just, you know, I think of like Resident Evil titles typically tend to sell anywhere between like 5 to 10 million copies, which is a really successful number. And especially for their very quick development time, they're pumping that shit out like crazy.
It's just like, you know, I guess it's, you know, it's those inflated budgets, right? Like it's hard to look at 1 million copies sold as a failure, but because I mean, it was a big deal for Silent Hill 2 when they crossed that milestone.
But I think that their development cost was much, much lower. And they also came in with probably very timid sales expectations because, one, Silent Hill was a very dormant franchise, and two, the most recent entries in Silent Hill have not been well received, commercially or critically. So, yeah, BioWare's future probably hinges on this next Mass Effect. And it's got to release sometime soon because it's been, and I say soon, like the next year or two, but it's got to be coming. I'm very, very curious on, you know, we do know that there is going to be some like nostalgic characters showing. Obviously, Liara was in the trailer. You know, do we see just the whole gang back together?
I could have sworn I heard it was going to be significant amount of period after the trilogy. So,
but Liara obviously is an alien who.
Yeah, sorry, don't age as much. Yeah. I could see like seeing
the Krogans don't. Yeah. So, I don't know, but like Tali's probably passed away at this point.
Don't you say it?
Varys is probably gone.
Yeah, like Jack is gone. Like there's a lot of characters who
Miranda.
Yeah, rip.
All right.
But yeah, I'm very curious how they, you know, end up attacking this. I'll say this: I want nothing more than Mass Effect 5 to be the best game. Like, period. I would love nothing more than BioWare to say we are still BioWare, where we put out kick-ass games, and here's Mass Effect, and it fucking rocks. So, maybe Summer Game Fest we'll get our next look at it. I think that'd be a great spot. I just don't know. I really, really don't know. Yeah, that's about everything I've got from my side. What you guys, anything else you wanted to discuss while we got the group here right now?
Nothing. Xbox Developer Direct was awesome.
Yeah, A+. You guys knocked it out of the fucking park. Perfect. Well, hey, we'll go ahead and we'll close out today. Just want to say thank you for everybody who is tuning in. Stay tuned, and we will be back next week. Take care, guys.
Have a good one.
See y'all.